Toyota's Land Cruiser nameplate evokes more heritage than most other automotive names out there. Since the 1950s, Toyota's Land Cruiser has forged a reputation for being an absolutely unkillable but go anywhere type machine. But anybody outside the United States might be surprised to know that Americans like me have only known one flavor of the Toyota Land Cruiser up until very recently, when Toyota brought the light-duty Land Cruiser Prado to the United States for the first time as the 250 series Toyota Land Cruiser in the United States of America. But to be honest, us Americans have always known the light-duty Land Cruiser, but underneath a different name, the Lexus GX. Right here I have the first generation Lexus GX470, which came to the United States when Toyota and Lexus saw the success of the Lexus version of the full-size Land Cruiser known as the Lexus LX470. They decided that they would bring a Lexus version of the Toyota Land Cruiser Prado to the United States. And again, up until very recently, Americans like me only knew the light-duty Land Cruiser Prado as the luxurious Lexus GX version, like what we have right here. So let's remind ourselves just how great these old Land Cruisers truly are. This Lexus GX 470 is finished in Dorado Gold Pearl. Yes, Dorado, named after the city of gold, El Dorado. I think it's a fun little touch. Also, this thing is just the epitome of 2006 rich. You have a paint finish in beautiful gold with chrome wheels and a beige interior on the inside. And it's also got lots of old school luxury off-roader touches. Things like the third row of seats that actually just fold directly up against the window because, when people want cargo, they're not going to care about their blind spots or anything. If you want to engage the optional third row seats, it's really rather simple. You just have to unhook it from this grab handle right here. And then before you rest the seat down, you have to unhook this stand right here, and then it should just clip into place. And then you've got another latch to just simply push down, and the seat will unfold itself into place, and now it's perfectly usable for a child to sit back here. Me being 6'3", I don't think it's gonna work, so I'm just going to fold this seat back up, which is a pretty simple process. Just do everything in reverse. And then being a Lexus version of a Toyota Land Cruiser, you can't expect to find tools or anything back here like you would in a Land Rover, but the Lexus GX470 actually has a pretty substantial toolkit back here. But no doubt you're gonna be using this for your Land Rover friends when they break down on the off-road trail, because if you're in one of these, it's never gonna break down. Even though this driver's seat is moved pretty much all the way back in my driving position where I would sit as a tall person, I still have a reasonable amount of room back here. I've got a decent amount of leg room, I've got plenty of headroom, and a tiny bit of foot room as well. Even though this is the smaller version of the Toyota Land Cruiser or the big Lexus off-roader, it's got a decent amount of room back here. And looking in the back of the headrest, I have an old school TV screen back here, which is honestly one of the first I've seen in any cars on this channel, and it must have been pretty cool for a kid to experience all the way back in 2006 when this GX470 came out. But overall, it still feels back here like you're sitting in a car that was designed as an off-roader first and a luxury vehicle second, which is something that the Lexus GX has always had, but I think later years were able to distract it better than these earlier years. But that's not to say that this thing is not nice back here. It's still got plenty of room, nice materials, and some cool comfort features like these TV screens that play DVDs in the back of the headrest. But where it's really at is up front, so let's move along and go up there. When you get up front in the Lexus GX470, this is where you can expect to find most of the mid-2000s technology, as well as some off-road goodies. Things like a low-range gearbox and a locking center differential, to name a few, as well as adaptable air suspension in here with height control where you can raise and lower the car depending on what takes your fancy. And you have adaptable dampers as well. You've got a comfort mode and a sport mode, which I'm sure doesn't make it feel that much better around turns, but it's definitely better than nothing. And back then, having all of this equipment in here was pretty awesome. And it's what you should have expected from a luxurious, expensive off-roader Lexus. Another thing that you could have expected back in the day was navigation, and this car has that, and it's even a touchscreen, which is pretty ahead of its time. One thing that also makes this navigation screen right here ahead of its time is the fact that you have an early implementation of a climate submenu. Most modern cars now have climate submenus to declutter the interior of buttons, and depending on who you ask, that's either a good or a bad thing. In this Lexus and any car of this era, I'd expect all of the controls for the climate to be buttons. This is very, very much ahead of its time, and it was really showing back then where luxury cars were going to be headed in the future. And then you move over to right in front of the driver, you have old school analog gauges, which are definitely more old-fashioned than the screen that you have in the center. You just have all the information that you need and a little tiny black and white trip computer display right here, which will show you things like your trip computer and your odometer, which is reading 196,890 miles. And then you move on to other things like this wood-trimmed leather steering wheel, which is very, very nice to hold around the wood bits, which are nice and shiny. The leather bits are a bit sticky and worn on this one, definitely showing its age and mileage there, but it's easily something that you wouldn't have expected to see in a standard Land Cruiser Prado, as well as the other wood trim that's dashed all about the cabin, particularly up front. You've got wood trim on the door panel here that incorporates the memory seat controls, which is a bit weird to see there. You've got wood again on the steering wheel, wood on the dashboard right here, incorporating the climate vents and the hazard button. You also have wood around these off-road drive controls, as well as wood on the very, very old-fashioned, very of its time automatic gear selector, which you pull down through these physical gates. There's no button to release it or anything. It's one of those old school Toyota setups. Modern cars have little electronic toggle switches to shift into gear. This thing just has an old school automatic gear selector, an old school parking brake, and an old school knob to control your low range gearbox. And with that, let's move into more mechanical things and talk about the engine that lies underneath the hood. Before we pop the hood of the Lexus GX470, did anybody else notice that the headlights and the reverse lights on the rear are tinted green? That was not some weird aftermarket thing. This was something that Lexus did themselves. The idea was to tint the lights green to sort of match the green interior lights that would turn on with the headlights at night. Definitely a weird, obscure feature, but in these, I think it's really cool. They didn't do it for very long, but it's definitely worth noting. Green tinted lights. Of course, in this, it takes a little bit longer to actually find the hood release on the interior because you're not going to be opening this hood as often. But when you do, you reveal the 2UZ FE 4.7 liter V8. In the 2006 Lexus GX470, this engine was developing 263 horsepower and 323 pound-feet of torque. The fuel economy rating in a vehicle like this will surprise absolutely nobody. It was 15 city, 19 highway. Back then, SUVs were still gas-guzzling vehicles. Modern SUVs have gotten a little bit better. Back then, it was just a big V8 motor up front and drive arriving at all four wheels all the time via a 5-speed automatic transmission. Lots of other luxurious off-roaders of the day had setups similar to this, but this one had a reputation, once again, for lasting forever. This engine was also in lots of other different full-size Toyota and Lexus off-roaders, trucks, and SUVs. And it also touted a towing capacity of 6,500 pounds, which we're not going to be doing today because we've never towed on this channel. I've only towed once in my life. What I like to do is just take the car out for a drive on public roads. So let's do that and see what this thing's like. You may look at this thing and think that it's a complete dinosaur in most of its ways, but honestly, sitting up front right here, and even for those in the back who will be watching movies on those screens in the back of the front headrests, this thing has an impressive array of technology at your disposal. But when you're driving around in it, it still feels like an old school Land Cruiser, an old school luxury off-roader in all the right ways. It still handles absolutely poorly. It still has quite a harsh ride owing to its body on frame construction. Also, I believe this thing might have been swapped to coils. It's got coils on the front for sure. I'm too afraid to touch that height control to find out. And it's also, despite having a V8, let's put our foot down. That's a police officer. He didn't notice me flooring it at all because it's only 260 horsepower. It's not that much. It's also hurting you when it comes to fuel economy as well. It's got all those old school off-roader touches, but it still calls upon a mixture of new age technology that I didn't expect before getting in this thing. And today, if you want a regular Toyota Land Cruiser in the United States, you have to get the smaller Land Cruiser Prado. They don't sell the brand new 300 series in the States anymore. And the Prado has to make do with a turbo hybrid 4-cylinder. Back then, it was just V8 only in the Lexus GX470 in the United States. And like I said, it's got that mixed personality, but in a really lovable way. It still feels like a luxurious vehicle, but it also feels like an old school off-roader all the same. The ride quality isn't very good. The body lean through turns is absolutely enormous, but you're always aware of the fact that you're touching this lovely wood-trimmed steering wheel, and you're aware of the fact that this thing is just gonna keep going and going and going and never break on you. And when it comes down to it, it's still a very practical 3-row SUV with 4-wheel drive that you can use 365 days a year without a worry. It's always going to get you home no matter what the terrain, no matter what the weather. It's always going to work. These things are just amazing because they last forever. They're so well built. They have really nice materials in and out. It has an impressive amount of technology, as I've already said, and it's got a good personality to it. Overall though, the GX470 isn't very exciting to drive. When I put the dampers into sport mode, it doesn't really do anything, to be honest. It's still very wallowy through the turns. Not very exciting to drive. It's more of an everyday vehicle that you use no matter what the situation is. And these things you can find all day for what? $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 if you want a really nice one, something like that. I think they're still kind of undervalued because people always go after Toyota Land Cruisers, and for some reason they miss out on the Lexus GX. It's a really cool experience getting to review this Lexus GX today, and I want to thank everybody for watching, wish everybody a fantastic day, and ask you all now to do all the normal YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, do whatever you'd like to. So with that, I want to thank everybody for watching. Bye-bye.